Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm super thrilled to be here with you this week. I know there are so many different things taking place, but before we begin, I do want to make some announcements for you. First things first, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on Spotify and all of your main social media outlets. Where you can find me on those social media outlets. You can follow me on Facebook, which is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube channel is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. So follow me there, okay? Also, check out my website, www.india-white.com for books, blogs, or to schedule me for your next speaking or coaching event. I'm thankful for Stockton School District for allowing me to come and train them on grit. And I'm thankful for ICTM Conference for allowing me to be one of the keynotes among your amazing lineup of keynote speakers. This past week, we had a blast. I'm looking forward to great reports. Also, I want to remind you of the Grit Mini Workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website titled How to Harness Grit to Help Students Thrive. Thank you for those that have taken it. And I know the word is starting to get out about all these different workshops and things like that. So thank you guys in advance. Also, the Grit Academy. If you have students that are needing tutoring or you're needing other supports, please feel free to send me an email and, we can get you situated with that. I also wanted to remind you guys of the Grit calendars that just launched. So you can feel free to go to my website, check that out, get some Grit calendars for yourself and for your classes. And so also I do have some speaking engagements coming up. I'm super excited about. I will see many of you guys at NCTM's regional conference, and I will also see you in Orlando at the Imagine Schools conference. That will be next week. I'm super excited, and thank you to all of the leaders that were involved in that. I will also be a keynote at the FDLA conference, which is an online platform. So thank you to everyone for these opportunities again. Now, that said, I do want to talk a little bit about grit and building grit in students and building grit for the sake of merit, because I know we're doing all that we can in these last days to get our kids where they need to be when it comes down to being successful and making sure that they're able to get into college and making sure that they're able to be prepared for college and career readiness. So today's topic will be about building merit in students through grit. Now, with that said, I do want to just start out by giving you some basic tips on merit. And I think of this because I think of when I was in high school and I was applying for those scholarships. I remembered one of my guidance counselors really emphasized to me, India, you need to make sure that you can prove your level of intelligence and your merit. Because it wasn't about just getting into college because of who I was and all those different things, but it was about my intelligence, my intellectual ability. And so whenever you have merit, you're able to really show your competency, your ability to do things, your ability to comprehend. So some tips that I want to share with you guys for building merit. First things first, when you're building merit in students, praise their efforts and their work, because that is what's really going to shine in the end, is what they're able to produce, right? And so making sure that you're praising their efforts is key, because that makes them motivated and makes them to remain gritty as they're working. 2, focus on the goals of your students. Focus on their goals. Whenever they are losing motivation and they're not feeling like, they have a connection or things like that, they have other life things going on, focus on goals of your students to keep them focused and to make sure that they're meeting those deadlines and that they're able to prove their competency in a certain amount of time. 3, remain fair with rubrics. So it's tough sometimes, especially as an educator or as a leader, to be able to truly demonstrate which students are really gritty, which students really have, high levels of proficiency, things like that, versus just being super subjective. The thing I like about a rubric is it is somewhat one of the better instruments that you can use to measure merit and to measure success and performance of students. I would recommend, though, in order to avoid subjectivity, that could be detrimental in the way that we're subjective. I would say to blind copy, those, if you have a project or a homework assignment or whatever for a student, just cover up the names so that you can, grade it fairly. So that's one thing I would recommend for sure. And then talking about using numeracy-based practices, because whenever you're trying to build merit, if you're able to connect the dots and help students to know how they can relate to a particular assignment or particular word problem, even because they're able to see themselves in it, they're able to see their life experience, they're able to relate. So for instance, if you brought a book to us in Florida and you are Southern Florida and you spoke about snow, right? That's why I said Southern snow, because Florida, because I know the Panhandle just had snow. If you talked about shoveling snow, there is no relevance there for, say, Sarasota, Florida. It's just not there. So when you're talking about that numeracy portion and having students feel like they belong and feel like they want to do the work, it's imperative that you have numeracy-based practices so that you can reel the whole child in and make them feel like it's worth, giving it a shot. And then it gives them a talking point, gives them some, somewhere to grasp, somewhere to start with. And then the next tip that I had for you guys is to strive for conceptual understanding. So there's one thing to teach the memorization tricks and rote memorization. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's an evil thing unless it's abused or that's all you're doing, then there's a problem. I do think that there are times that there should be memorization skills because that sometimes does help build blocks towards that conceptual understanding. Sometimes students do need to just get the facts down. Multiplication tables, you need to get them down. Do you need to understand how they became? Yes, of course. Pulling out different manipulatives and helping them. But at the same time, sometimes you got to just say, these are the formulas or this is what's going on. Now let me lead you conceptually towards, more knowledge as you build out, a particular topic or particular skill or concept. Now, conceptual understanding is key because once the students get that, then that really kind of helps them just holistically approach the math or whatever their topic is, and to remain motivated because they feel confident. They know that they're able to do the work. And that helps to build that merit. So I hope that these different tips can help you guys when it comes down to building merit in students and, building grit as well, as you're helping your students to be gritty with various assignments. Now, with that said, I do want to now shift and focus a little bit on some things that I was able to find for us regarding this. So it's like an article, using a merit system to improve student behaviors, benefits, and best practices. So a merit-based system is very interesting. So the benefits of it, it talks about how a merit system, it's a reward system that acknowledges students for good behaviors and reinforces positive actions. So this post, it talks about the benefits of that and how they use power school behavior. So, shout out to them. And it says the benefits of it, for one, it encourages positive behavior of a student and encourages them to make positive choices and to strive for good behavior, helps them to be more productive and respectful in the classroom. And look here, build self-esteem. I love that. It's all about that self-efficacy piece. I'm telling you. It says a merit system provides students with a sense of accomplishment and boosts their self-esteem. Students who feel good about themselves are more likely to engage in positive behaviors. Then you can facilitate communication between teachers and parents. So with the merit system in place, teachers can communicate with parents about a child's behavior and progress. And then that also, I think, takes away from things like school to prison pipeline initiatives where it's just super referral charges and all this stuff, but it actually balances out that discipline approach in the classroom. Okay, and then it talks about here when they're using their Power School behavior plugin, It's a tool that tracks behaviors. So something you can check out here. I'll stop sharing, but I think that was pretty interesting. And I think it makes me think, if a student has merit and if a student is being motivated and mentally, challenged, and that metacognitive piece is going forward, then the chances of them being distracted and getting into trouble for some disciplinary situation will decrease because the students feel like they're there not to be a target to get kicked out of class, but they're there to actually learn and to, have their knowledge blossom along with their peers. I think that's pretty neat to have a merit system. So that was one thing I was able to find for us. Let's look at the next. A little video I found on grading with rubrics. And they're measuring merit, they're measuring competency with the rubric, and they're trying to keep the subjectivity as limited as possible, right? So they're in the middle of a lesson. She's like a teacher coach, and the one on the left is a teacher coach. The one on the right, it was her experience. So let's see.
Okay.
If those are the important areas. It's very important for teachers, graduate teachers, experienced teachers, to make consistent judgments in a classroom. We have clarifying and confirming days as real teachers that we need to go to. So it's important that we share that knowledge with graduate teachers and let them know it's okay to spend quite a bit of time making sure that you're getting it right. Going back, we can only mark on what the child shows us. We can't take into account what we know they can do. We can only mark on what they show us.
That's merit.
This
right.
child, he has a D on all 4 areas, but he has a C in conclusion.
I guess if we look at this, there's no way we could give him any more than a D based on what he's given us.
Yes.
However, in your comments, perhaps you could say, I can see that you are able to apply this to the real world.
Yes.
But your written explanations have let you down. Looking at this, we can't give him any more than a D. He hasn't shown us that he can do it to a sound standard.
Thank you.
So that's just kind of a taste as to how a merit rubric would work. So it takes away a lot of the subjectivity, some good, some bad. Some subjectivity can be, well, the student, like in that situation, I know the student can do this, but this is all they did. So guess what? That's all I can give them. Or, the student, usually they never do this, but look what they put on paper. Like, look what they did. I guess I have to give them what they gave us. And that's merit. So it's just something I thought very interesting for us to consider when you're trying to navigate the waters of education and grading, and how do you grade students fairly, and relieve some of that subjectivity, leaving some of that out, because we're really striving for merit-based learning, merit-based grading. So with that said, let's keep going. Developing grit and building grit as well, because I think that goes with merit.
Normal is anything but for most of us. So how can we build our grit during this time? How can we become grittier people, grittier leaders that not only get through this storm and with whatever obstacles we face, but we find a way to succeed when this storm ends? Simple, really. It all starts with how we focus on winning today. Most of us, we lose our motivation. We give up on those big goals. We honestly quit because we take our eyes off of what we're doing today and we only focus on how far we have left to go.
Sometimes our students do go through that where they feel helpless, like they feel like in our classes, like, oh my God, like I have so much I have to make up, not to get this done in time. What's the use, right? And so being able to build grit and changing their mindset to that growth mindset is key. So let's keep listening to him and see what else he has to say.
About the reasons why we started after this. We stopped looking at the progress we made and we honestly just care about the gap between where we are right now and where we're trying to go, way off in that distant future. We look at the obstacles between where we are now and where we're trying to go. We look at the amount of time, the challenges, and we give up. We see that it's too hard, too far. We can never get there. And so we allow that little voice in the back of our heads to tell us that. We believe them, that we'll never achieve anything, and so we give up. In reality, gritty people don't give up because gritty people aren't focused on that gap. Gritty people are focused on what they're going to do today. They understand the only way we're going to shorten that gap, to overcome those obstacles, and to get to where we're ultimately trying to go in life is by taking care of our business today. It's by
I love it. And so, I don't want to get flagged for copyright, but he was on fire there, saying a lot of stuff about gritty people. I love it. You can watch his video later. His shirt said "Dare Greatly," so I think it's great. So I think that we have to continue to move on that wavelength of focusing on what can you get done today. That's why I mentioned, earlier, the grit calendars and things like that to support students, teachers, and whomever, to make sure that people are focused on their today and they feel like there's hope. A lot of this has to deal with a sense of hopelessness. And sometimes students don't feel confident that they have merit because they're struggling with self-esteem issues, or maybe they are not a good test taker. So they felt like that test was a part of their whole academic identity, right? And so that's why it's imperative that we work through their anxieties and their fears and their qualms, and we build them up with the growth mindset and through positive reinforcements and praise, like I spoke about earlier, so that they feel like, yes, I can keep moving the needle forward. I'm not a failure. I'm not, totally empty upstairs. Like, I've got something, to work with. So with that said, let's keep going. I want to kind of look at another video, and it's just talking about developing grit in general.
Could be ideal in every respect, and they work every day toward their distant vision, that goal or purpose. Brian Tracy. Oftentimes, success is not about how smart you are or what resources you have. It's about your ability to work hard and overcome obstacles. Everyone experiences difficulties and challenges. It's an essential part of the progression of life.
And that's imperative, because sometimes people feel like, students, they feel like the world is caving in and nobody's ever dealt with it before, and woe is me, and they succumb to their circumstances, and they have to learn how to push through those circumstances with passion to triumph, right? They have to understand how they can walk through this triumphantly, and that an obstacle is not the end of their fate, and that, I try to say it all the time. Life comes in cycles, up, down, up, down. We have to understand how to pull our students out through grit, pull them out of those low places, and even principal leaders, whatever, pulling teachers out of those low spots, whether that's like data that came back or a situation taking place in their community or something personal. Pull them out of those low spots through grit, through gritty thinking, gritty actions, and beyond. So let's keep listening to what else they had to say about developing grit.
The ability to overcome obstacles is one of the most important skills you can have. It enables you to use all of your other strengths and abilities to their fullest. Facing and overcoming adversity over and over teaches you how to develop grit, which is the tenacity to persevere no matter what. The more times you persevere, the more it eventually just becomes part of your character. Instead of getting discouraged or giving up the next time you hit a roadblock, apply the following 4-part formula for how to develop the grit you need to overcome anything that stands in your way.
So they mentioned that there's a little formula they have. I might go over a couple of pieces of that, but in general, I just wanted us to talk about grit, developing grit, and to understand that there's always hope. We can never erase the word hope out of a student's life. And, as a teacher, you have the power to cultivate grit by focusing on that hope and focusing on their long-term goals. And then reminding them of how you believe in them and the efforts that they put in before, and reminding them of their ability to be resilient, right? So they can continue to move forward. So let's listen a little bit more to this one, because I want to...
After your interests. First, make sure your goals align with the things you're actually interested in. Give yourself permission to chase your passions and what makes you happiest. Life is most fulfilling when you enjoy the journey and not just the end goal.
I think that's cool, but sometimes students, they're not really interested, right? So let's listen to see what else he has to say.
Number 2, redefine failure. Instead of seeing mistakes, setbacks, or poor decisions as failures, learn to find the lessons and opportunities in each of these moments. Remember that difficulties come not to obstruct, but to instruct. Adversity shows you what you're made of, what is at the very core of your character. The way you become unstoppable is refusing to stop. It's a habit of mind and character that you develop by practicing persistence over and over until it becomes a permanent part of your character.
I like that. And I like that because I know how powerful persistence is. And some people have said to me over the years, just keep walking no matter what. Whatever you do, don't stop. Just keep walking. Just keep moving forward. And that's the key part of it all, is remaining persistent no matter what. Remaining persistent no matter what. So
don't let the fear of being wrong or failing hinder you from reaching success.
I like that.
Every great venture begins with an act of faith, like a step into the great unknown. Small victories. You also need to acknowledge all of your wins, big or small. All of your victories bring you one step closer to achieving success, and it's important to celebrate them. This could mean treating yourself to something you enjoy, or simply checking a completed step off your list. Create small, measurable goals so you'll have more victories to celebrate. Celebrating your successes makes you happy, proves to you that you're making progress, motivates you to continue on, and builds your confidence. What their future could be, ideal in every respect.
So this is why I speak about how we need to celebrate students, pat them on the back, be that praiser, be that cheerleader. Every student needs a cheerleader. And sometimes if you have a student on your campus that is, maybe they're acting out, maybe they're always in trouble, I have a question for all of you. Who is their cheerleader? Do they have a cheerleader? Because they probably don't. And that's why it's imperative also to have mentors, right? And those supports on campus for students. So that's something to kind of couple with a grit movement or grit concept, is to also have mentors in place that can help students as well. All right. So with that said,
And finally, number 4, focus on the bigger picture. Keep track of where you're headed and remind yourself of where you want to end up. Your ability to set goals and to make plans for their accomplishment is the master skill of success. Be clear about your goals, but be flexible about the process of achieving them. Keep an open mind to changes and improvements, and be willing to accept feedback from your environment. Continue working hard, because the obstacles you face are temporary. You will overcome them and succeed. The thrill of achievement comes from overcoming adversity and the accomplishment of an important goal. To begin your goal,
find that on, I'm sure, on any of Brian Tracy's information. I know he's done great work. So thanks for letting me share that. I thought it was very interesting as we're talking about building merit in students through grit. And of course, I always tell you that grit is just having that great resilience in time, making sure that students understand that it's all about having resilience in a certain amount of time. And how to keep that is through that self-efficacy and having that growth mindset, never stopping, never giving up, never allowing them to drop the ball, never allowing them to just quit. You have to continue to reinforce, the great things that they're doing and the great behaviors, and continuing to cheer for them, continuing to praise their intellect and their efforts towards conceptual understanding is key as well. So with this said, these are all of the different tools that I wanted to talk about today when it comes down to building grit and building merit in students. And so thank you so much for joining me, guys, again on the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. Again, this particular podcast, it will be featured on Spotify and all of the main social media outlets. So the main social media outlets, for instance, you'll find it on Facebook, Miss India White, LinkedIn at The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. Now, you can also check out the website for books, blogs, and to schedule me for a speaking or coaching event. I would love to join you. And then also check out the Grit Mini Workshop whenever you get a chance. How to harness grit to help students thrive. Check out the Grit Academy whenever you get a chance for those that have little ones, students, or whatnot. You're needing tutoring services. We have that for you there. Check out the Grit calendars. that were just launched. Get your team on it and check it out and see how it works out for you as you guys continue to build grit with your team, build grit with your own personal life as you're accomplishing your goals, finishing out the school year, finishing particular projects, starting over, starting new, whatever. Feel free to check it out. Okay. And also, I wanted to remind you guys of some upcoming conferences I can't wait to see you guys at. I know I'll be at NCTM for the regional conference next week, and I'll also be at the Imagine Schools conference. So super excited. Can't wait to see you all there, and also at the FDLA conference. Super excited and honored to be a keynote in the lineup with those amazing leaders there as well. And so with that said, guys, continue to stay gritty. If you're needing any grit resources and things like that, check out, my website, www.india-white.com, or send me an email. My email is scrolling below, india.white.123@gmail.com. And so with that said, guys, I'm proud of all of you. Keep up the fabulous work. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And if you ever have any questions or follow up of any of these podcasts, feel free to email me or to chime out so that we can connect. Okay. With that said, take care. And until next time, stay gritty. See ya.